everybody, welcome to the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Taylor, joined by Rich Hudson.
Hello.
And Josh Brown.
Hello.
Battle Royale's a thing, people.
Apparently,
Is it?
so I've heard, Scott.
It's kind of the biggest thing. We sort of dove back into, I don't know, our general sort of thoughts on the genre because Apex Legends is the biggest thing the whole world's talking about on Twitch and Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Me and Josh have got fired into it. Rich, you've downloaded it.
I've downloaded it and installed it. I've not played it yet.
But man is a connoisseur of the Battle Royales in general. Or at least, he's played a lot of PUBG is what I'm getting around to.
Yeah.
Right, flashback to a couple of years ago. I remember when Rich Hudson wanted to put PUBG as like one of the best games of the years. We were there.
That's a good point. Yeah,
we saw it live. If you go back to our game of the year, what was that, 2016? 2017?
Yeah.
At the very end.
Honourable mention was PUBG.
Yes.
Because it was like we had the big debate as to whether it would be counted as a game of the year or not.
Yes, that was the big old thing. That was the first year that it sort of dropped and the general explosion around the genre sort of came back into view.
Technically, it had released by the time we had done that video.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah, but technically, was it any good though?
Well, that's the thing. If you come back to now, you're the one saying that you're kind of a bit burnt out
I
on
am
it.
like going into like the podcast properly. Like, I'm super burned out on Battle Royale, which I don't know about you two, but I feel like you two are kind of the same.
Sometimes I fluctuate regularly.
Yeah, that's what I do as well. Like when PUBG came out, as you said, I played a ton of PUBG when it first launched. Like we picked it up, me and my friends, when it must have been like really soon after it dropped, like when it just started getting a little bit of momentum. We were seeing it on like our Steam recommended and all this sort of thing. We just got it. We hadn't played Battle Royale games before. We've sunk loads of time into it. I've got a couple of 100 hours in it. But now I'm just super burned out on it because it's the realization of the genre, because there's always that thrill when you're playing it for the first time. But as time goes on, it gets more and more boring. You get to the bit where you drop and you have to loot and you have to, it just kind of, when it gets repetitive, it gets annoying. I can't understand people that can play it for like hours and hours and hours on end. We get like 2.5, maybe 3 out of it at best,
right, before
we move on to something else. Because I don't know. And even all the new battle royales that come out, like Blackout. When I first played Blackout, I was like, God, this is really good, and I just don't play it
for like an evening.
I'm more or less exactly the same as Rich, to be honest. I haven't played PUBG weirdly enough. I've played like bits of it. I've played like a couple of matches, but not.
We played a little bit of Rich's, but it was like one match.
Did you try it at mine when we tried?
No, I wasn't there.
I forced Scott to use a keyboard and mouse. That was fun.
I tried playing.
Why does anyone ever
WASD?
Anyway.
I tried playing it just before Christmas, but that was when I was peak Battle Royale burnout and I didn't want to play it. But I played a pretty good amount of Blackout, Fortnite, now Apex Legends. And
H1Z1.
H1Z1. But I've played each one of those for about, 10 hours each. And it just got to the point where I just gave up.
Right.
Because it's great. The first taste of it, the first taste of each one of them, no matter how similar they are, always pulled me in. But then eventually just lost me far quicker than any other shooter game out there.
So I think for the sake of the structure of this podcast, we'll get to Apex Legends in a bit because that seems to be the one that's getting a lot of buzz obviously right now, but it is kind of cyclical. But in terms of the genre itself, like you spoke to the idea that, you do that thing that you sort of identify gameplay loops when you're playing any sort of game, and you play a Battle Royale and it's very fatiguing doing multiple games in a row.
Absolutely.
Because you land, you loot, you sort of scavenge, you stand in a field for 10 minutes, and then something happens that's like lasts for about 30 seconds, and then you do the same thing all over again.
I think that's the thing that annoys me the most about Battle Royale is obviously the randomized nature of it is great, because if you knew where the best loot would drop, you'd always go there, etc., etc. But it always seems to be the case that, it's gaming. Like, it sounds like we're moaning about gaming.
We are
all
old men.
But like the idea of going and finding, like, I'm playing PUBG, I've got like an amazing sniper rifle with an 8 times, and I've got an assault rifle with a silencer, like I'm kitted to hell, and I just get headshot, one shot, dead, start again. And then I play a game where I've got absolutely naff all, and I get to the top 10.
See,
I think that does kind of like make the experience a lot of fun, and it makes it very, very varied. But sometimes it's just such a grind when you die that it just rubs off on you the wrong way. And I think that's what I think that's what we instinctively feel when we start playing Battle Royale. Is this game going to be worth playing, or shall I just quit now?
I mean, again, we'll get to Apex Legends, but in terms of you were saying you put about 10 hours into each one, I've played initially played a hell of a lot of Fortnite because it was just such a big deal. I was like, I need to get my head around this. I need to know what it is that people are latching onto. And I think it probably is that sense of fairness that you kind of have when you go in, where it's like, you can actually win this if you just hide in a bathtub for like half an hour. Yeah. And that seems to be one of the core appeals, is that anybody can leap in, hence why Fortnite's main demographic tend to be younger, because they're just people trying it out for the first time. But do you think that the genre is kind of fundamentally, or the mode, sorry, is like fundamentally fatiguing?
Well, this is the thing. This is why I like Apex Legends more, and I'm sure we'll get to it. But I think that's fixed a lot of the problems I had with those Battle Royale experiences in how quickly they do fatigue you. I think it depends on the game as well, because like you said, Fortnite, I played a lot of that initially, and I went back to that a few weeks ago, and I couldn't believe how much it had changed, like the layout of the maps and
the map's
weapons.
Completely different.
Exactly,
yeah.
And I think they've, although I don't necessarily like the gameplay loop, I think they've, Epic, who've got a good way of rolling out content for that, because they constantly change it and they constantly make it interesting. Whereas after I got to a certain amount of hours in H1Z1, I was just like, well, I've seen everything this game has to offer.
Right.
There's nothing different that I'm getting out of this. I've done the same kind of play styles. I've switched it up and tried something else. I've tried to hide in a bush. I've tried to be more active. And these boring old warehouses just aren't appealing to me anymore.
What did you guys think of Blackout then? Because like Call of Duty was meant to be like, it's the biggest first-person shooter, like, you know, franchise on the planet. It should be the biggest battle royale, but it seems to have died a hell of a death.
Well, when Fortnite first released the battle royale, obviously, I downloaded it the first day it came out, and I hated it. And that's mainly because when you play Fortnite versus PUBG, they are two very different games. They're both battle royale, but they are both very different, and that's kind of the beauty of the genre. Battle Royale is a very big encompassing thing, whereas you can do what you want within that sort of circle. It doesn't always work, because as we've seen from Radical Heights and all this other thing, they don't always work. But PUBG have this more realistic approach. It feels more like Battlefield without the sort of, I don't mean it in a negative way, but the sloppy animation of like running and shooting, which is the thing that switches me off Battlefield.
Right.
Whereas Fortnite is the lovey-dovey, the cutesy, it's still solid, but it's a very different way, because it's solely third person. And the way it plays, the building mechanics, which is another thing I don't like about Fortnite. Like use the map, use the cover that is given to you. Don't make it yourself. Like when I have played Fortnite and somebody builds a big like base in the middle of the circle at the end of the game, I'm just thinking,
you got to build yourself. You got to get higher and come in from above.
I couldn't invest my time into doing that to be able to have that. But with something like Blackout plays the best that I have played. I've not played Apex yet, obviously, which I've heard plays.
Little does he know.
I know. I've heard it's immaculate.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Titanfall shooting, so yeah, apparently it's absolutely immaculate. But Blackout plays incredibly well. And the fact that it's the format that changes. It is more fast-paced because it is Call of Duty. The wingsuits over parachutes, I'll give them all of that. Like, they've done a really good job of keeping that fresh. But because it's Call of Duty, it still feels cheap when you die. Even with the best time to kill in Black Ops 4, but that time to kill in multiplayer, putting that into a battle royale formula, into an ecosystem, it still doesn't feel quite right. Whereas the time to kill in PUBG, as much as you can headshot somebody with a sniper rifle and it doesn't kill them, which sounds like a load of rubbish, but in terms of the gameplay loop, it works better like that. So I think Blackout has done so much right and so much wrong, and it's kind of teetering.
Blackout is a strange paradox to me, because like you said, it is, for me, maybe until Apex Legends came around, the tightest of the bunch. Like, it was really polished. It was a proper AAA experience.
Massive budget.
Massive budget. It had everything behind it. It had that core like Call of Duty mechanics that are just like perfect.
Yeah.
But I think it suffers massively from being a spin-off. The fact that it is so indebted to being Call of Duty, and it plays on the lore in such a great way. Like, it's got elements of maps, it's got characters who you know and love. But because it is distinctly Call of Duty, even though the time to kill has been sort of increased and you get more health and you get different weapons and stuff, every single time I'm in a firefight in that game, I just wish I was playing Team Deathmatch. Because the feedback you get from killing someone isn't different enough, and it satisfies the same itch, and yet the other game modes satisfy that itch way quicker and way more regularly.
That's one of the biggest reasons that I always get turned off by Battle Royale, because say you have an immaculately well-playing Battle Royale, something like a Call of Duty, or to some degree something like H1Z1 in terms of like the way that the physics feel, and you're driving into an encounter and you engage with another player, whatever it is. Some of the best Battle Royales just remind you how good every other game mode is. And so like it's like a weird paradigm, because the better combat is in a Battle Royale, the more you're just going to go play something that specializes in that and lets you be constantly engaged with it. Like, that was why I did a whole rage tweet the other day, because I died in Apex Legends for like the 5th time or whatever, and I was like, man, there's such a lack of reward in the Battle Royale genre in terms of it being consistently doled out. And I think that's something that my gamer nerd brain's been kind of grappling with the genre overall, because it's not a constantly engaging thing. Like, I swapped back over to Titanfall 2 and just had a multiplayer match, and I was like, this is beautiful, because it's constantly engaging and constantly rewarding. But that's not what Battle Royale is trying to be. It's more like a slow burn, and then you might get rewarded at the very end, but the height of that reward is so much bigger than the consistency of the other modes.
See, I've struggled with that because before any real Battle Royale game came out, I was totally invested in that idea, the fact that, oh my god, you have to make everything for yourself. You have to drop in, you have to gather your own resources, you only get one life. That was great. I remember watching DayZ videos back when that was first a thing, and obviously I didn't have a PC powerful enough to play it, but I was just kind of fawning over this idea. So by the time PUBG came around, that sort of nailed it. I was so ready to love Battle Royale, and then it actually came around, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I don't think any of them have quite nailed that survival aspect. Like you said, it feels a bit too unrewarding when you're in like the loot stage or like the preparation stage. I know you could say just be more active and search out firefights, but I think that doesn't really work when you then get kicked back to the lobby and have to wait through to get into another match. And that is also something I think Apex Legends has solved. But we'll get to that
a little
later.
bit. I mean, it's, one of the biggest things, because obviously you spend the time like loading into a match, you drop down, you've kitted up like you said before, and then you get taken out, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll just do all that again then. Yeah. And so, like, was that one of the main things that ended up burning you out on PUBG?
A little bit. I think mainly I play PUBG and Battle Royale almost exclusively with a team.
Right.
Solo Battle Royale, I just don't find fun. Like, I played it a bit. Like, I came second in like my first ever Fortnite game and my first ever PUBG game in solo, but I was like, this is not as like it's more in terms of thinking about the reward you get from that and thinking, oh yeah, I got to second, but it's like, but that was so boring in the process.
Very easy.
You know, gallivanting about with your mates, like me and my friends, like we play this game and we're like, sometimes we play really, really seriously, we do really, really well, we get some wins in. Sometimes we muck about. Like once, just, oh look, what's that? Oh, my mate's down because my friend shot him, because why not? Like, we have a bit of fun with it. It just makes the game more interesting to play. But yeah, the loop is not as bad when you're playing in multiplayer, but you still get burned out on it. But for solo, like I could play 2 games like by myself and then just think, I wish I was doing this with a team.
See, I'm the total opposite, because I love the whole lone wolf, like no one knows where I am. Everyone's the combat's all around me, and I'm just like hidden down to watching it unfold, and I'll pick someone off with a sniper rifle later on. I like that sort of like pretending you're in an actual war zone kind of thing, and that element of stealth. Like I think it might just because I love the stealth genre, but I love like knowing that other players don't know where you are, and you can just. I mean, there
is no other feeling like that in video games, especially in a multiplayer ecosystem. I cannot dispute that at all.
Well, that was one of the best things about the Division. Like, I mean, they kind of went somewhere close to it with the what the hell do you call that main Blackout? Was it the Blackout area?
Dark Zone.
Dark Zone. Because when you're in there, no one knows where you are, but all the audio is radial. So if you hear someone, like a group of people talking, it's like literally in some movie where in some post-apocalypse, and you hear a gang of raiders coming down the street. Right. That's one of the best things about the Division.
I'm so with you, right? Because when I played the Division, I didn't actually spend much time in the Dark Zone, but one of the few times I went in there with friends, we sort of sparked up this rivalry with this one other player. He killed my friend, and then he took his loot, and then he ran through like the subways. Like, there's, like, it's not a fully modeled subway, but you can go underground and go down and under. And I remember like chasing him through this thing, and my mates like talking to me like, get him back. And I'm trying to. It was like a scripted event in like this really great emergent multiplayer experience that I want more of in Battle Royale. Battle Royale should be full of those little stories, and I don't really have any to talk about.
Oh, see, I have a good handful of stories, but I think just to quickly finish the Division point, that's one of the best things that hopefully the Division 2 manages to execute on, is that idea of like survivability, which is something that Battle Royale's still kind of experimenting with. Is like, how much do you not let the player feel powerful so that they have to scavenge and get there? But I think that's you sever that off as well.
It feels more arcadey when they could really do, because there isn't really like a super duper ground, like really really down to earth, like very gravelly grounded Battle Royale I can think of.
No, not really. I mean,
it's like that takes things really seriously.
I think because of virtue that they have to have a big shrinking zone circle, and you have to have like all these kind of weirdly unrealistic scenarios of like little pockets of loot kind of being in places. Like, there hasn't been like a super gritty realistic one. The nearest might be something like an H1Z1 or something.
Potentially.
But I mean, actually, we might as well bring Apex in, because then we can start talking about the way that the genre's kind of moved on. Or at least I don't know, because when you start applying like nerdy, you start kind of break down the genre, what's its appeal and all that kind of stuff. And something like PUBG isn't the most streamlined, fluid of animation or the way that you play it. It's very much a mod. Like, it came from a mod history kind of thing. But you go across to Apex, and that is Respawn bringing across the lessons learned from the Titanfall series. And all of a sudden, you've got this insane sense of locomotion. Like, you're sliding everywhere, you're jumping, you're kind of kicking off the walls. Like, you can't wall run horizontally, but you can run straight up. So you can get good vantage points on people. And then you have like different superhero powers and stuff like that. You said that you feel like it solves a lot of the problems that the other games have.
Again, it's early days. I've put a couple of hours into this, not as much as the other ones. Baby. And I might get to the 10-hour mark like I have with the rest, and then finally give up on it. But at the moment, I've had way more fun initially. And it is very intuitive to pick up as well with this than the the games because of the things that it does fix. The one biggest for me, and I'm sure we'll get to some more after this, but the ability to simply revive people who are dead is so good because it sort of negates the fact that you have to always quit as soon as you die and then go through the rigmarole all again. And you are rooting for your teammates to sort of get through. It is exciting to watch your team sort of one man down, fighting another person, and then picking up your banner and going to a respawn point and bringing people back into the fight. That's awesome. Like the way it kind of flows and like the tables can turn. You might be you might be the last person in a squad.
Yep.
And then you can bring both your friends back, and then you're like, whoa, we've got a fighting chance of doing this. And that's just it eliminates a lot of the downtime that I really don't like about these
But you can eliminate having to go back to the lobby, and like they have two states of being like you either get downed, where it's like you lose your health, you get downed, and then if someone finishes you off with an actual animated finisher, Gears of War 2 style, which I love. Even if you get completely annihilated, you then turn into a token that your teammate can grab, and then make a mad dash for a respawn beacon, and you can bring someone back anyway. So
That's
you
interesting,
can always get around death. Most of the time, people just quit and go back to the lobby to restart the game anyway, and then you're just stuck being by yourself. But at least they've attempted to try and get around that, because one of the biggest sort of elements that got in the way of the genre is, or I don't know, in gaming in general, is that idea of like checkpoints and being punished and like being, you're like you said, you're ready to have a big old fight and you just get shot in the back.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
Whereas my first foray into playing games without the respawn was something like Search and Destroy in Call of Duty. But the thing is, because those rounds were so short, if you got killed off, it's like, damn, whatever.
Yeah.
Like we'll wait 3-4 minutes and then off you go again. Whereas in something like PUBG, when you're playing with your friends, like the number of times that, for example, like 3 of us out of 4 have won the game and we've just got the 4th sat in Discord watching us because he's dead, or it's been me sitting watching them win because I'm dead. There's nothing. It's quite disappointing. And I'm intrigued as to how Apex go about that. Like how frequent do you find these respawn points? Are they quite rare?
They're pretty regular, yeah. I mean, they're little green dots on the map. They're only one-time use, though. So if you're running to revive your teammates, like someone else could totally just do that, and then you're cut off. And obviously, the assumption is that anytime there's a respawn beacon, that 2 or 3 squads are all going together.
Might be all going for it.
Yeah, we can pivot
That's
into
really interesting.
Yeah, it's a
really
nice little
cool.
shake-up. And and plus another thing that it mandates that I go back and forward on is that you have to play in a team of 3. So you always you get matched up with randoms, and obviously you can play with your friends. And you drop as a 3, like you specialize where you want to drop.
Yeah, I've seen that actually.
as a squad
because you get somebody as a drop leader.
Yeah, called Jump Master.
That's the thing.
And so you drop as
I've seen
a 3.
some gameplay of it.
Yeah, and then but that's I prefer solo. So when my dudes die, I'm like, I'm not respawning, I'm not reviving you. I want to play this myself.
No, Scott, no.
Not all the time, but I do quite like when they'll die, I'll get their tokens. I was making a mad dash for the respawn beacon like that, and I was running towards the beacon, and they disconnected. They must have gone back to the lobby, so it just popped. It didn't even tell me, so I was just okay, I'm just alone now, and so I just played it solo. But they kind of get around that idea that you can keep the game going if you're good enough, and they also have a whole bunch of superhero powers in here as well that are just it's clearly
because it's a hero shooter battle royale.
Yes, that's their big thing, is that there's a very cynical way to look at it, which I do all day long. That you can just draw it up and be like, okay, they've got superhero powers because they're in right now. They've got a very cutesy art style. A lot of the quips that the characters say are cringy as hell.
Yeah,
where it's just, where it's just sort of no cluster foxtrots in my unit, and I'm like, oh god, really? That's where you went? But okay. But yeah, I think we might as well talk about the maps as well, because I think this is something that the genre is changing over time. PUBG was just humongous, and then Fortnite decided to go the complete opposite way. How much do you guys think that I don't know, how much time do you spend exploring, and how much do you prefer a smaller encounter?
Well, in Apex Legends, I don't even know how big it is in comparison to the other games, but it feels
it's about
slightly
smaller than Fortnite,
yeah, it does feel smaller, but that's because you have fewer players in it. It's only 60 people of how many teams is that? 20 teams? Something?
20
I can't do
teams,
maths on camera.
60 divided by 3.
I know it's 60 players, so the map does feel smaller, but I think it's far more dense than something like Fortnite originally was, or H1Z1 especially. And I think more of the player space feels like mini multiplayer maps sort of stitched together.
Yes.
I never got just shot up the arse like I normally do in these Battle Royale games. It felt like, I remember the first time I ever shot someone in the game and they nicked off behind a tree or something, and I was like, this is new. I normally, if I see someone first, I can at least sustain fire, attack them or take them out. But this guy just started off, healed, came back around, and then kicked my ass again. But I was like, that's good, because that is how I would play a regular multiplayer shooter. I would look at the level and sort of plan my attack, and not just not that I chance it in Battle Royale modes, but I think there's a lot less reliance on kind of cover or the map style itself in those games.
It's kind of like a spread out version of Titanfall 2's combat. Like I said, they've removed things like the wall running and you don't have the double jump, and not every character has access to the grappling hook. That's only Pathfinder, who's one of the characters, but you don't have any fall damage, so you can just leap off the biggest waterfall you want.
That's good.
There are zip lines everywhere, so you can get around the place really fast. You can go straight up these balloons. There's like balloons hanging in the area, and that'll redeploy you so you can fly somewhere else. Like they're trying to like make you explore and get around like confidently, so that you can kind of encounter different players, comfortably kind of thing. But that's the weirdest thing with the way the maps have gone and the way that the combat and stuff's gone, because I wonder if the biggest reason to play a battle royale is you want to be completely starved of options and then see if you can overcome it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, have you guys thought like the way the genre's like just moved since, I guess your first experiences would have been PUBG? Like,
yeah, that was the main, other than like modding for Arma 3, DayZ, H1Z1, like that was the first standalone battle royale game that really took off, hence why everyone jumped on the bandwagon after it was successful.
Because like the more that they start doing these more consistent encounters and the more mobility you have, the more we get back around to the idea that you might as well just go play something else again.
For me, and even though I brought it up earlier with Blackout, I don't get that feeling with Apex Legends, and I really thought I would, because obviously it's set in the Titanfall universe. We're getting this instead of Titanfall 3, except I mean, in the short term,
we're getting a premium Titanfall experience later in the year.
Probably going to be a mobile.
It's going to be an app, isn't it?
Yeah, something like
card
that.
collecting.
Yeah, I don't know, probably.
Titanfall the card game. Yeah,
I would not be surprised at all.
But yeah, I thought I would get that same feeling playing this, but I think enough has changed, and there are sustained. When I've been playing anyway, I find people quite often, and I have a lot of engagement. I might not win them all, but I'm not just sort of spending the bulk of the time getting resources in the same way I do the other game. Maybe that's just because I'm playing it differently.
No, actually,
I don't know.
That's another point as well. Like, how much do you think that Battle Royale has to have certain staples? Like, you have to have the shrinking zone, you have to have the loot system. Like, I don't know. I guess it's other thing you have to drop in. Like, you couldn't just spawn somewhere. Like, how much do you think it's shackled to those like base ideas of what Battle Royale even is? Because like Apex is experimenting, but it's within those.
I think it's because within like the fairness of the game of the mode, it's kind of difficult to really change a huge amount, because like I remember we were having debates about Blackout whether you would pick somewhere to spawn like you did in, say, Battlefield. When you die, you pick somewhere to spawn. You kind of can in Black Ops 4 if one person's playing the right specialist and deployed the right thing. But doing the dropping from a particular dropping from on high with a particular like trajectory across the map, it's one of those things where it's not there's not really much you can do different to that. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Same with the looting. But then obviously there are games that loot differently. So for example, Blackout, you pick up a gun, it's loaded, job done.
Yeah.
Pick up a gun in PUBG, it's not, and you need to make sure you've picked up the ammo. What's it like in Apex? Is it already loaded?
You get they have a really restricted clip size, so you can get it like a like you can make it bigger, but like when you pick up a gun, it'll have like literally like 3 rounds, 5 rounds in it, and then you'll pick up like additional ones. And yes, there's like 3 ammo types as well, like light, heavy, and energy or whatever.
Right.
But they want you to grab a gun and go. It's kind of in the middle. Like, you're gonna make your weapons better as you go.
Another thing that I think PUBG have missed out on is the number of times I've dropped somewhere. Like the last time I played Sanhok, which is the smallest map, which was their attempt at like cloning the Fortnite size. I think it is about the same size as Fortnite's
that was clearly them trying to do that. Yeah.
Which is, it's all right as a map. Like, we thought the more fast pace would be great, but it's kind of annoying. I've had like a couple of really good games on it, but otherwise it's always been a bit.
I remember when I did like a little tweet a while ago where I was like, battle royales are the real walking simulators, because you spend the most time just in fields.
Those games when you are just having to chase the edge of the zone, it's one of those things where you're running along thinking, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, it gets to the point where you're thinking, the zone is moving too quickly for me to outrun it. I will die here. Why don't I just quit?
This is what I've noticed, and I don't know if the game has actually changed anything or it's just me, but in Apex, I find myself not outrunning the zone anywhere near as much as I do in Fortnite, especially. All I do in Fortnite is outrun the zone and then get shot. But in Apex, I'm always either in it. Like, I think you're just encouraged to, again, be more active in this game than you are in most of it.
That's where the nerdy side of it comes in, because obviously the developers are playing around with this stuff, and it's like they play around with it. Where are you going to spawn? Where are you going to drop? Where are the likely locations that are going to draw you in, kind of thing, and where are they going to put the loot? Because Apex tells you where its loot is, like not on the map, but when you walk into a zone, it'll say mid-tier loot, high-tier loot, and so you know that you're in a good area, and that's assumedly where people are there going to gravitate towards. And so then, Respawn are funneling you towards certain places, and then you have supply drops, and the idea of respawn beacons and little things where they can kind of like guiding hand, like bring you to certain areas. That's one of the best things about Respawn, is that they feel like a dev that play their own games. It's like, it reminds me of old school Bungie, where you like watch the making ofs and they're all just gamers and they know what it is a good thing to do for the gameplay. Which I don't know if that's how much that's the case for like the other ones that have kind of risen up. Like, I don't know, like I guess the appeal of Fortnite is that it's not as mechanically heavy as something like Apex. So that's the thing. Can Apex offer something that these other ones didn't?
I think it does. I think it does. Just in subtle changes, like you were talking before about the active looting. I think that's miles more compelling in miles more compelling in Apex Legends. Just because I'm not looking at the floor all the time. I'm not walking into houses and looking at the floor and not seeing anything else.
Yeah.
Just having containers that I open up and then I get these colourful pops. It sounds stupid, right? That I love the colours, but there's a reason Borderlands is so beloved. It's because of the satisfaction of opening up that kind of chest of
Now that
guns
you've said that,
and seeing them pop up. That's Apex Legends has something very similar, and I get the same feeling every single time.
You do spend so many battle royales just looking at the floor.
Yeah.
Like just sort of like running along, hammering a button, like trying to get everything as you run along the floor. Like some weird little harvesting machine. And even that, they're like, hey, just put them at eye level. Eye level is buy level. So why not?
There we go.
Retail, I worked it. And so we can also kind of use this to pivot into the future of battle royale. Because what do you think would get you back in? Like in terms of, because you're burnt out on the genre at the minute.
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I think I get intrigued with the new titles that come out. Hence why, like I said, I've installed Apex, haven't played it yet, but I'm willing to try it. Like I tried Fortnite.
And then you threw up a lot.
What are the battle royals have we got? We've got Blackout, obviously. Didn't play H1Z1.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's a bit too similar to PUBG in terms of its gameplay, which is like, I don't because the reason why I tried Blackout is because it's Call of Duty. The reason why I tried Fortnite is because it was something different. I try Apex again because it's something different.
I think H1Z1 got a massive boost because it was a quote unquote PUBG on PS4 before PUBG was on PS4.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that landed,
the game's garbage.
So. Apparently, I liked it, but it was a bit of a rough start.
Play style, but I don't know whether there'll be anything major that can get me back into it. Like I still play it occasionally, and that's because it's just playing it with friends, got something to play that we still do enjoy playing when we do play it. But I don't feel like I'll get back into Battle Royale as substantially as I did when I first got into PUBG, and because I thought I would with Blackout, and I haven't.
Right.
I mean, I thought I would with Black Ops 4 in general, but I haven't. But I don't really know, and I think that's the reason why I pitched the idea of this is because of Battlefield 5's Firestorm.
The Battle Royale that time forgot, because I completely forgot this was coming.
So, I mean, just taking
like Battlefield 5?
I know, taking off from EA's disastrously stupid comments about single player. About that's the reason why it's failed. It's like, I don't know. I was really concerned when Apex appeared, because I know that a lot of people so when they revealed Apex, everyone just sort of went,
yeah, like what?
Okay, no disputing it. Apparently, it's fantastic, and it's had a lot of positive reception. But it still kind of feels very late to the party, in the same way that like Valve doing Artifact went, "Hey, here's a card game." It's like, you're a bit late on that one, Valve.
Hearthstone was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Where but obviously Apex has taken off. But I said to you, Scott, I think this might just be the case. A brand new game comes out, especially one as big as this, because if you think back, you've got Apex now that's topping Twitch.
Yes.
You had Fortnite when that first came out. You had PUBG when that first came out. And then the last thing I know that was really big, things like Overwatch. And then before that was like Minecraft. So it only happens occasionally that there's this huge boom. And it might do with Apex, and I think it will do with Apex, but it might die out quicker because it's Battle Royale. Because we have seen over the course of this year, as much as Fortnite's still huge, PUBG is still huge, there seems to be there's nowhere near as much momentum behind these genres anymore. People are losing interest and just sort of moving on.
Maybe. I mean, it's strange because I tend to think of Battle Royale as the first new genre in so long. Yeah. Like it feels ages since we had like this kind of real like mechanical innovation where you have to rethink the very mentality of how you play that mode. I think that's really cool. But yeah, Fortnite's going to become something like the mushroom dance is it's become this big like pop culture thing where there's like videos of like kids dancing to the mushroom dance, and it's not anything to do with the gameplay anymore. It's just what
the hell's the mushroom dance? I thought it was like the flossing.
That's Backpack Kid was the other. Yeah, there's that too. But yeah, Fortnite has become this kind of like pop culture thing. Yeah. Whereas you've got this big groundswell around Apex, and its average numbers on Twitch have been about 200,000 since launch, which is what Fortnite averages all the time. But is that coming from EA spending a lot of money on sponsored streamers? Because I already saw Ninja. Ninja tweeted out something because he was feeling ill or something, and he was like, I can't wait to grab a Phoenix pack and jump into Apex. Then he hashtag ad, and And it's
Right,
like, yeah, okay,
okay,
so
okay,
like, yeah,
right,
you're just
okay,
being paid to say this. So yeah, it's like how much is that initial boom like not going to last kind of thing.
Respawn actually made some interesting comments when the game first came out, when they were doing like loads of interviews. They were talking about how we view Battle Royale as being this oversaturated genre,
right?
Because everyone was trying to imitate PUBG and then Fortnite. But really, there are only three biggies. There's PUBG, there's Blackout, and then there's Fortnite, obviously.
Right.
And there is space for, and they offer similar experiences, but not quite the same. And there is space between them, like Apex, to come in and be like, right, we're doing 60 players, we're doing a team-based Battle Royale, and sort of also gain some momentum and gain some popularity by doing something slightly different that doesn't kind of go head-to-head with those big three and try to take them down in the same way EA used to pit Call of Duty against Battlefield and just try to smash them together. I think with Apex, they've kind of realized that you can enter this genre, of course, but you've got to do something different and not just be another imitator that falls by the wayside.
And with zero marketing as well. Like they had one influencer event. That's where it initially leaked like 4 days ahead of the Monday where it came out, and then it's just hey, it's out, go play it, do whatever you want. And either Drew McCoy or Vincent Pella from Respawn was like, hey, just play it. Don't worry about reading the previews. Just play it. See what you think. It's free. Go try it out. And that seems to have benefited them like tenfold. But yeah, it's like where the hell do they go like from here kind of thing? Because like if they, and I think they can sustain the momentum basically because I have full faith in the Titanfall / Apex game engine.
Yeah, I think Apex are fine. I think after the launch of it being this popular, because with every other battle royale that hasn't been PUBG, Fortnite, Blackout, they've just not gone anywhere. They've just fallen flat on their ass, and that's it. That's all we hear from them. But because Apex has got to this point, it's going to be okay. I think it might go the same way as Blackout, where Blackout's still popular, but it's not Fortnite, PUBG popular.
Yeah, Blackout's numbers are tiny right now.
It's still there, but it's like it's still chugging along fine. People are really happy playing it. Something like Firestorm, I just don't think people are really going to care. I think not because it's Battlefield 5 and because it's been a failure for EA. I think it's just more that I think it's just coming too late.
Maybe
it's still a month away, isn't it? Supposedly, March.
Yeah. End of March is the rumours. But with Battlefield 5 in particular, in that Firestorm mode, I don't know what EA are kind of expecting because people, Battlefield 5 sold about 7 million copies.
Right.
I can't imagine it's got 7 million players still doing it today. And then when Firestorm comes out, a fraction of those will play that game. It's not coming out like Apex Legends or even Blackout, which was there at launch, is this sort of separate, its own entity. If Firestorm was free to play, or if you, I don't know if they did something different with it. Like it might get a bigger player base, but this is going to get a fraction of the people who already own Battlefield 5. I can't imagine people are going to buy or rebuy Battlefield 5 just to play the Battle Royale.
And Battlefield 5 is already this massive, like, you know, huge teams on each other kind of thing. You've already got that expansive feel of the map and
so like how different is
combat.
It going to feel?
Yeah, and then you have to boil it down to well, there'll be a shrinking zone and there'll be loot and it gets very mechanical and very arbitrary and very just not engaging.
It's just to buy the numbers.
It feels very
Royale mode,
in.
and like you said, because it's so similar to the game in itself, like what difference is this? It will feel like, I think we had this debate before, Josh, like it's just going to feel like a game mode rather than a whole experience like Blackout marketed itself to be, which admittedly versus Call of Duty multiplayer as it is, it really does feel like something completely different.
Yeah, that's what I was very inelegantly trying to get to there, Rich. Like it does feel like in that sense a mode in sort of Blackout could have felt like that, but I think that did enough just about to separate itself from the rest of Black Ops 4, whereas Firestorm, in my opinion, doesn't stand a chance.
One of the interesting things going forward, especially for the rest of this year, is that after Firestorm, we'll have seen the biggest first-person shooter franchises on the planet. Like they'll have offered their versions of Battle Royale. We've got Blackout versus Firestorm, and then where the hell do they go from there? Something like Apex can come out of nowhere, but even that is trading on EA and Titanfall and these established ideas of what you can do with the genre. After that, like who the hell even knows if Blackout can't do it?
Even Counter-Strike has got their own Battle Royale mode, which I still haven't played, but I know that they have got something as well.
Is that a PC franchise? Don't believe that's a thing that we know.
But yeah, I don't see any more Battle Royales coming out this year, or even kind of from here on out, really, because I think a lot of the smaller developers now, the ones who try to jump on the success of Battle Royale generally. So something like Boss Key, you had the Culling 2 that was like chopped out as quickly as possible, and whatever else Battle Royale modes we've had. I don't think any more smaller studios are even going to bother, because they're just like, there's just no point.
I think they will if they have something really unique on the mechanical side, because
you'd say that, but like what's that one that's coming out, the Storm one? Storm
Divers maybe?
Storm Divers?
Something like that.
Like again, it's like, that was, I think, because that looked like a hero base.
Swords in it.
It looked more like a hero-based thing because it's like, here's somebody and here's their ability. Here's somebody, here's their ability. It's like, well, now Apex are just
They're probably just going, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, basically.
That could have been us. But not to worry. I guess, guys, can let us know what you think down in the comments below. Where do you see the Battle Royale genre going, and where do you think it has come from, and all those thoughts in general. This has been the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. I'm radio host Scott Taylor, joined by Rich Hudson.
Thank you for listening.
And joined by Josh Brown.
Thank you very much.
I'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye. I can do the sentences.